Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the Aspen City Council work session for September 9th. Today on our agenda, we have CoA, the Community Office for Resource Efficiency, presenting, talking about governance. We have the golf business plan discussion. some time for council board reports, as well as the APCHA discussion led by Ward and John. And we're going to go get started, and I think we see CoA is ready to go. Tess, if you'd like to introduce.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Tessa Schreiner. I'm the Sustainability Manager. I will let these fine folks next to me from CoA introduce themselves briefly. This is CoA's presentation at this work session. I'm here to answer any questions from the staff perspective or staff side, but I will go ahead and hand it off to John Doyle.
All right. Good afternoon, Council members. John Doherty, CEO at CoA. Here this afternoon to provide you a brief update on where we're at as an organization, as well as a request regarding our governance structure and changes to that structure. And with me, Tara Stitzline, our Chief of Staff at CoA, and the magic behind this lovely presentation.
Nice to meet you all.
So, quickly just wanted to run through the history of CoA. As you know, CoA was established in 1995 as part of an agreement, an inter-organizational agreement between local municipalities and the utilities. In 1999, that evolved with the creation of REMP. And that was a concept that that CoA's team brought forward and was adopted by jointly by Pitkin County and the city of Aspen as a revenue source to support the continued work of CoA and climate action initiatives in the region. In 2018, City of Aspen dissolved that joint resolution regarding how REMP would be utilized to allow the city to manage and apply the funds around mitigation projects within the city of Aspen. And in 2022, at requests and based on information and feedback we received both from the county and the city, we began to evolve the structure of the organization, both from a governance perspective as well as from an operational perspective when it comes to fundraising and how we continue to support the work of CoA. We've continued to partner, as you know, with the City of Aspen on several projects around our advising and assessment work, as well as the BIQ benchmark process. A couple of things just as a reminder what our foundational services are. Our foundational services are the advising assessment services as well as the provision of grants and rebates to help make those assessments and recommendations from our staff possible for building owners, both residential, commercial, and government building operations. Over the last 30 years, over $20 million has been invested and reduced over 36,000 metric tons of carbon as a result of the projects we've supported. A couple of those key projects have included the first ever rebate program, solar rebate program, the first net zero affordable housing initiative in 2018, world's highest elevation heat pump in 2021 through funding from CoA, and the largest greenhouse gas reduction from a single project in Aspen in 2023, and then the introduction of a heat pump for snow melt that was done at the Yellow Brick that we featured in some reports last year. And we continue to support policy compliance, so leading Aspen buildings to 100% compliance with Building IQ through our fee-for-service partnership in helping them meet the State of Colorado Building Performance Program. From an organizational capacity building perspective, in 2025, we will be launching what we're referring to as our regional hub, which will bring together resources, financial, advising, policy resources to help advance the work that we're doing across the region. We've expanded our professional expertise by adopting a more nimble staffing model, which includes bringing in subject matter experts on contractual and consulting basis, and then strengthening our full-time staff team to bring more expertise in the building design side with our new Director of Climate Action Programs, Jamie Vogt, who is a certified engineer. And then over this last year, we've really been focusing regionally around several studies that cross Pitkin, Garfield, and Eagle County communities. A study around the multifamily initiative to understand that is one of our largest opportunities. A study around green workforce and the needs to match the demand in the industry with equipping our workforce with the right skills, tools, and technology to address some of the projects that we're trying to support. And then today, we're actually launching or just simultaneously to now, we are engaged in announcing some work that we've been doing across the region around aligning building codes to help make the work more efficient and more streamlined for our design folks and our builders. As we look ahead, this is our 30th year, so we had a celebration just a couple weeks ago of our first of two. The second one will be in December. We'll make sure you're all invited to celebrate your Community Office of Resource Efficiency. In 2025, we do anticipate continuing to grow our speed and scale of the work that we're doing through the Regional Building Performance Hub. And we've continued over the last couple of years to build out our fee-for-service offerings as well as establishing a philanthropic department. So as we reported last time we were before you, historically about 99% of CoR's budget came from REMP funding. This year we're operating at about 60%, somewhere between 55 and 60%, and we've balanced that with generating fee-for-service revenue through contractual relationships as well as private philanthropy. So we continue to work with local governments and private entities to help us advance that work. The thing we're here to talk about today a bit is the board governance evolution. So over the last couple of years, part of our effort out of a strategic decision made by the board is to evolve the composition of who sits on our board. So in the original interorganizational agreement, the board composition was elected officials appointed from each of the municipalities as well as utility partners. A couple of years ago, the organization made the decision to begin to evolve away from that to support our philanthropic needs and to also help us be able to pursue more aggressively partnerships through fee-for-service relationships in the private sector. So currently, we are in that evolution. We have a few board members that are community citizens, but we are slated as of January 2025 to be 100% community citizen board members. So that is a decision that was started 2 years ago and then formalized at the end of last year, and we've been working since then to identify individuals that will fill those community seats starting in January. So our request today is that the way that structure was established around our governance structure and who sits on CoR's board was established in the original interorganizational agreement of 1995. So we're here to make a request to formalize the sort of end of that interorganizational agreement that would allow us to then update our organizational bylaws to reflect those changes and fill those vacated positions with seats from the community going forward. So, covered a lot of ground in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Good job.
I have a couple of questions outside of maybe the governance, but really maybe the financials. So I'm wondering your annual budget and where it's derived from and how much goes out and what effect this would have on those arrangements going forward.
So our annual budget right now is a little over $4 million. Of that, we are currently forecasted to not only expend that, but we are actually, we have a process by which we encumber projects that will have costs associated with them. And in some cases, those projects never move to fruition. Whether that is someone terminates a project, they just don't move forward, or they don't complete it in order to receive the rebate or the grant award that we would have given them to achieve the greenhouse gas reduction. When that happens, we put that into a reserve, and then we use that to forward fund future projects, depending upon which locality that is funded from. Of the $4 million right now, like I said, a little over, about 55 to 60%, I think we're somewhere around 56 or 57, is coming from REMP funds out of Pitkin County and the city of Aspen. And this year's funding cycle, you have a balance of those funds for our foundational services, so $850,000 from Pitkin County, $850,000 from the city of Aspen for our foundational grants, incentives, rebates, and then we had an additional fee-for-service funding that came to support the Building IQ program in partnership with Tessa and her team.
And I can provide extra context to that too. It has been many years since there was any language in the City of Aspen code that specified that funding were to go specifically to CORE. So that was historically how it was. That is no longer how it is. And so since that change, CORE has continued to come with an annual request to council for the use of REM funds for things like foundational services and any additional projects that we feel a need that CORE may be able to fill. And so we come with a resolution every year with a scope of work for council to approve. And the change of this, the termination of this IOA would not change that fundamentally. So CORE would still anticipate coming to council for use of REMP funds. The termination of this agreement or the termination of the IOA would fundamentally change the board structure, if that makes sense.
It does. And do you know, what is city collections on REMP funding on an annual basis?
We estimate in the budget about $850,000 annually. That has been exceeded in the last 2 years due to a large number of large projects.
Great. Thanks. Other questions from council members? Ward?
Yeah, thank you. For years, and since we've had representation on the board for 30 years, the funding mechanism has been through the rent fees and through our normal budget process. If we are no longer being represented on the board and been voted off the island, it seems to me that the funding should go through a normal grant process instead of through the normal City of Aspen budget process. I'm curious what, a few years ago when I was on board, on the APCHA board, our CORE board, the question was, well, why do we support CORE? Why don't we do this internally? Why don't we do the projects that you're doing internally? One of the answers to that had traction for me was that there's some people that just plain don't want to do this kind of stuff through a governmental entity. So CORE is positioned well to be able to be insulated from the city. This is another layer of insulation in that the city has no input. And so my concern is that the funding, I think, should go through a normal grant process instead of a city budget line item. And then following that, it would be where would this grant funds come from? Would they come from REMP? And I'm interested in what the REMP originating documents, what the documents are now on the use of REMP funds. I know that we've been able to use them to support CORE in the past, but this is a fundamental change. It's a change in the way that we're represented on CORE. We won't have a voice on CORE. And, we're being asked to contribute many hundreds of thousands of dollars to CORE, and I'm going to kind of put a few of these things together. When funding was coming from Aspen and Pickens County, we had to be careful about where those funds are being spent, because our attorneys told us that any funding had to be spent within Pickens County. Well, now the focus on CORE is Pickens, Eagle, and Garfield County. So if no funds come from the REMP fee, then you're free to do what you want to do up and down the valley, and I encourage that. And along those lines, as far as a regional approach, I'm curious how CORE and CLEAR are related, and are you pursuing the same kind of projects? Is there any communication? I know that we had a number of years ago looked at joining forces and that there was a resistance. That hasn't happened, but if we're looking at a different funding mechanism, which the decline in REMP funds really required, and REMP was really designed to self-destroy, that we wanted building codes that wouldn't allow for excessive energy use, and we charged a fee for those that wanted it. Now we have building codes in the city and in the county that reduce the ability for people to use excess energy, and therefore the rent fees have decreased. And now that was why a couple of years ago, the direction to CoA was to find a different funding mechanism. And this is all along those lines. So my questions are core and clear, and the funding documents and the operative documents for the rent fee, where that money can be spent, and whether it should be through the regular budget cycle or if it should be through a grant cycle.
So I'll do my best to let Tessa chime in where we can. So part of the work based on the feedback of council a couple of years ago is that our relationship with the city and the county, and now Eagle County, Town of Snowmass Village, Basalt, all align in the same way, and that we produce a statement of work. And we present that statement of work when we make our funding request to you based on what we hear from the county and the city are, and our other partners, are priorities. And then the way the REMP dollars, the 2018 amendment to the way REMP could be spent, is it still is in the control of the city to determine, okay, is CoA an effective and useful way to spend the dollars to achieve what we want to achieve for the city of Aspen? Same holds true for Pitkin County, and we have now contractual agreements and work orders that we do for Town of Snowmass Village, Basalt, and Eagle County as well, that are in fee-for-service sort of relationships, since they don't have the same REMP structure. So in that way, what we bring forward is an opportunity to say, this is how we think we can best help the city achieve its goals, and then we present that to Tessa and her team, and then through that, you all would approve the use and what dollars you choose to use, whether it's REMP or other sources of funding. What we've really tried to do is establish a much more contractual relationship whereby we have an obligation to advance the priorities as established by staff. And that's how CoA is sort of moving this work forward. By taking that approach, that has allowed us to then do the same for other communities. So for example, in the last year, Eagle County, right, has a specific scope of work that last year, for about $200,000, we did specific things in Eagle County for Eagle County. Basalt has a scope of work. We just finished something for Town of Snowmass Village that was a specific scope of work for their electrification study. So that's how we sort of have it structured, and we've done that to try to position ourselves, one, to be really responsive to individual community needs and manage the dollars based on the way the REMP language is currently, which requires that it be used on City of Aspen projects. So from that perspective, I think we continue to see good progress. It also then allows us to pursue supplemental dollars from federal, state, and private foundations and individual donors to offset costs that can't be covered from local government or private contracts. With regard to CoA and CLEAR, all three, over the last year and a half, we established the Regional Climate Solutions Group across the three counties. Involved in that is CLEAR, CoA, Walking Mountains, and the Climate Action Collaborative for Eagle County. The alignment of building code, the green workforce study, and the multifamily study all were done in partnership with representatives from all three agencies and local government bodies from all three of those communities at the table. We meet on a monthly basis now. And so while CLEAR continues to be focused in Garfield County exclusively, with dollars that we are able to generate outside of those restricted by REMP to City of Aspen, Pitkin County, or our fee-for-service contracts, we are able to provide some services into Garfield County, and when we can't, we refer them through our Building Performance Hub and our concierge team to CLEAR as a partner in that space.
So in my mind, I have a question of giving a blank check or just a lump sum from the city instead of paying for fee-for-services. That I know that, like, all workforce housing could have an energy audit for free from CoA with funds that were from the city. And how would that be different if what if we just had every time that you had a service from the city, we pay you for that service, a fee for service, instead of giving you a lump sum of money.
I think, I mean, certainly that is an option in that sort of fee-for-service structure. I think my caution, not my caution with that, my concern for that on behalf of CORE would be that it does create, for every project, they can take 2 months to 2 years to implement. And we still have to have staff that we employ, sustain, and manage and keep cash flow where it needs to be to sustain the organization and keep things moving forward. So my only concern with that is it becomes a very high volume transactional piece on both sides of the equation that just becomes more time intensive and not focused on CORE's mission or time intensive on the staff side of the city.
You know, and John, I know that you know I'm aligned with all of the direction that CORE goes in, but I'm wearing my city financial hat here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and, you know, my hope is that our delivery, and we'll be coming back before you for the next request, and in that the reports and the way that we're able to demonstrate the impact that we're having in a much more tangible way, I think, than we ever have before, will demonstrate the value of the forward investment. But it's a fair question, and I appreciate
And just one final comment. My final comment is that, you know, we talk about regionalism. We have regionalism now more and more for workforce housing. We've had regionalism for transportation with RAFTA, and I think certainly it's a good direction to go for regionalism for greenhouse gas and energy initiatives.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a couple seconds just to see if there's an OOO there.
No, that was the final one.
Okay. John? And John, you're our current board member?
I am. I attended what was it, Directors Committee meeting?
Development
Development Committee meeting. this
Fundraising.
afternoon. We put the fund into fundraising. I'm just wanted to say I'm excited to see the progress made on aligning our building codes. I know it's not the greatest subject for some in the room, but I definitely see the benefits of heading that direction, so thanks.
Do you have any comments about the conversation regarding this governance change? What's the board conversation been?
I think John and Tessa covered it pretty well. I think the logical conclusion of, I think what Ward was trying to say is a phrase Greg Postman made popular is REMP was in the business of putting itself out of business, essentially, and that's what's happened. So moving on to a different way of funding CORE is important, and I think this is the way to do it. So I am fully behind this. And I would say incidentally, this is, last 6 months is probably the most time I put in on the CORE board as we transition away from being government funded. So thanks, team, for all your hard work.
Sam?
Happy moving forward with what they suggested.
Bill, any questions, comments?
Thanks. No, I'm super brief. I'm fine to move forward with this. I don't think it's lost on CORE that they have risks, not just in a declining revenue source of REMP in general, as John just spoke to, but in that in this annual funding cycle, whatever mechanism we go through, we might choose to allocate the funds elsewhere now that it's somewhat of a disconnected entity. That's not lost on you, though. You understand that. So I'm fine with it. I think CORE's doing good work. I'm not supportive of building IQ. Sorry to have to throw that in there. I just don't think that it's a beneficial program for our community and not a service that our community is going to see a return on. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right.
So if council approves the direction, the direction to staff that we're looking for is to come back with a resolution.
You have the direction to bring back a resolution.
Great. We will come back with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, CORE.
Thank you.
Thanks, Core. Thanks, John. Thank you, Core. right, item number 2, we're gonna talk a little golf.
4.
Good evening, everybody.
Mayor, City Council, my name's Austin Weiss. I'm your Parks and Rec Director, and tonight we're here to provide an update on the golf business plan. And to my right here is Jim Pratt, our Manager of Golf, and I'm going to leave the presentation to him here. Out in support.
Thank you for your patience real quick while I just open the document.
Sure. And while he's looking at that, Austin, can you just tell us the golf business plan, when did this process start for you guys? A year ago, 2 years ago?
So we selected the contract vendor this spring, Serious Golf Advisors. John Waite from Serious Golf was out here late June, I believe, is when he did his first visit. Was here a second trip in August, early August, and so we're about 2.5 months in.
2.5 months.
Yeah, we hope to have a draft of the business plan delivered in October, rather, and
Actually, later this month, we should hopefully have it.
later this month. But certainly, one of the aspects of the golf business plan is to simply also hear from City Council. We're going to present just some initial findings, but we'll pose some questions to Council tonight as well, and we'll be interested to hear your opinions in this process.
Cool. Sorry, thank you guys for your patience. All right, so,
If you'll hit your mute button on your speaker, just turn your speaker off.
did that work? No? Testing? Testing? Says it's muted. Right? No phone on me. Testing? That one better? Okay. Sorry, guys. Before I really dive into the presentation,
Yeah, I think we need to fix this. This is not going to be productive.
Speakers.
test. There we go. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all right.
There we go. Was working. There we go. I want to thank, we have members of our Golf Advisory Board here tonight. Jim Schonzenbaker, Charlie Weaver, Ted Green, Karen Barabee, Jeff Civis. I want to thank them for being here just to show their support for golf. We also have members of our golf staff here as well. So thank you all for being here. Like Austin said, we're here just to kind of give you an overview of where we are with our business plan, what our findings are so far, and to get a little bit of direction from council just so that we can better prepare in the future. Our mission statement is all geared around the fact that the golf course is about affordability and accessibility for our community, as well as being a sanctuary for wildlife. This has always been our mission, and this is one thing that has always been really important to the golf operations. To give you a little bit of a history of the golf course, the original golf course was built in 1961. There was additional land purchased in 1971, 72. The original clubhouse was located where the Parks Department building is. The golf course was closed for a couple of years from 78 to 80 when they transitioned it from a 9-hole operation or a 9-hole golf course to an 18-hole. Nordic grooming operations on the golf course and the surrounding area began in 1980. Nordic Council was formed in 1984. The golf course was the third golf course in the state of Colorado to receive their Certified Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary Award, which is something that we're pretty proud of that we still have today. And then we have the current clubhouse, which was built in 2002 at the same time as the Aspen Recreation Center. The golf operations is composed of 3 full-time positions. Those positions are myself, our superintendent, and we have 1 golf course mechanic. Looking into the future, one of the things that the business plan is kind of showing us that we've known for a little while is the need for an assistant superintendent as well as part of our operations. We have 55 seasonal employees, which they go from our outside services to behind the front counter to our maintenance, so there's a lot of them. And the golf course is a little bit different from some of the other organizations within the city, is that we are an enterprise fund, and we can kind of go into a little bit further on in this presentation of what that means and just how it makes our operation a little bit different. But then, as most of you know, we have other partners at our facility as well. We have our tennis operations, we have the Red Mountain Grill. Aspen Junior Golf has been a huge part of the operations since the mid-'80s. And then during the wintertime, we have Ute Mountaineer, who leases the Golf Pro Shop for Nordic operations. What we have, the big question right now that we're kind of faced with is community-based versus profit center. So right now, the golf operations are operating as a community amenity, which is part of our mission statement, or the fundamental part of our mission statement, to where we're able to provide affordable golf to our community. We're the only public golf course in the upper Roaring Fork Valley, and we are the original golf course in the Roaring Fork Valley. With this, our greens fees are affordable to our locals. We try to keep our green fees in our public. We give them an opportunity with reduced rates to get them on the golf course. With this, it also allows us to kind of determine what happens at the golf course as far as our capital projects and that sort of thing. The question at hand is, if we were more of a profit center, there's definitely room for growth and to make more revenue, but it does change the feel of the operations and definitely changes how we proceed with our business plan. The impacts with a profit center is obviously operate more of a business as an amenity. There'd be more users on the golf course. There's less community access. It would be operated more as a business. The other question, the other perspective is, if the city didn't manage the golf course and it was leased out to a third party, what would that look like? And that really changes things. Again, if somebody was to take over the operations as a third party, they would be for profit. They would try to maximize their revenue, which is what any of us would do if it was a business, but it changes the whole feel and what we're offering to the community. It takes away the fact that we are a community asset. Our locals would not have nearly as much access to the golf course. If they did want to play, it would certainly, it would cost a lot more. And then one of the other things that we were looking at is, that our business plan is telling us is, if somebody was to lease this, they wouldn't just want to lease the golf operations. It would be the restaurant, it would be the maintenance operations, which comes with a whole other questions on how that would be divvied up and who would be responsible for managing all those different divisions of the operations. The one The one thing is you'd have a fixed revenue source, similar to our other leases that we have with our restaurant and tennis operations, is we kind of know year after year what those revenues would be. So just a different perspective, but it is not the recommended approach for the operations if we wanted to maintain the golf course as being a community asset. Anything else you'd like to add there, Austin? Or?
No, thanks, Jim. I would just add that, one of the unique things about the Aspen Golf Course was it was the first open space parcel purchased by the city back in 1972. And so it does serve and is managed somewhat as a public park, if you will. And so along with that, it means that we obviously operate. We've got about over probably close to 10 kilometers of Nordic trails in the winter, as Jim suggested. But even in the shoulder season, we invite the public to come out there and walk throughout the day. Or even in the prime golf season, folks come out in the morning and they'll chase geese away off the greens with their dogs. So it has very much served as a model, as a public open space, if you will. And as you start to look at whether it is a profit center or a leased operations, it's harder to maintain the control of that land stewardship piece, if you will, of that property. Thank you.
This is just kind of an example of one of the recommendations that our consultant was showing us if we did want to try to find ways to generate a little bit more revenue within our pass structure. The left-hand side there shows you our 2024 golf rates and all the various passes that we have. One thing that we're hearing from staff, that we're hearing from our business consultant, is trying to simplify things. Obviously, the more you offer, the more challenging and more rules there are. So trying to simplify it a little bit, and then look at the possibility of reducing the amount of passes and incorporating some sort of primary resident or Aspen, an Aspen card, to allow people to where if they don't want to fully purchase a golf pass, it gives them a reduced rate by showing that they are a primary resident of our valley without fully investing into a golf pass. Another thing that I'm really excited about that we've been talking about, I don't know if you knew this, but the golf department does currently share around 3 FTE employees with the ICE department. We've been doing some research, and what we found is that the better relationship that we feel both for ICE and for golf would be shared positions between Nordic and golf. The property that they operate on is the same year-round. They both of those positions are familiar with operating heavy equipment, and again, the big position that we're looking for in the future is that assistant superintendent position. So really excited about that opportunity.
Quite a view there for cross-country skiers.
What's that?
Quite a view there for cross-country skiers.
Oh, absolutely.
And Jim, I might just add as well, along with this, with some of the staffing challenges, along with many other organizations in this valley, we rely heavily on seasonal labor. And so it's just a reality that we're faced with, but we have, as Jim mentioned earlier, about 55 seasonal staff members, and getting that consistency, making sure that the customer service piece of this operation is where we want it to be, is always a bit of a challenge, utilizing that seasonal labor force.
Thank you, Austin. Yeah. Another part of that business plan that they're identifying are facility upgrades and repairs. This is kind of where the enterprise fund aspect of our operation kind of comes forward a little bit more. So as an enterprise fund, the golf operations is responsible for financing all repairs of our property by ourselves. The way that we're kind of moving in with our budget, our operational expenses are being fully covered by the revenue that we're generating, but the capital expenditures are certainly getting, they're going to be large, and they're certainly going to be large coming down the road. Right now, the clubhouse is 22 years old, and with the popularity and growth of Aspen, we're certainly seeing more and more users for the size of the facilities that we have for tennis, for golf, for the surrounding property as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, as Jim mentioned earlier, some of the challenges of the enterprise fund are illustrated here when you look at the, and Jim referenced this at the beginning, that the pro shop was built at the same time the ARC, and that was all part of the Parks and Open Space Bonding Initiative back in the late 1990s. And so when you look at the operations of the program through the lens of this enterprise fund, yes, the operations, smaller capital projects, the improvements that we saw out on the golf course at hole 17 and 4 this summer, those can be absorbed by the enterprise fund. But when it's time to do very large capital improvement projects, we'll probably be looking for other revenue sources, other funding sources rather, like the Parks and Open Space Fund.
Absolutely. Here's just kind of a screenshot of what our total revenues look like or forecasted at, as well as our expenditures and the ending fund balance. So the fund balance is actually remaining fairly steady. You see a little bit of a drop there in the 2027. That's a year that we have forecasted for roughly $1 million dedicated towards the clubhouse maintenance. That you'll see later on, or later in October with the budgets, but just kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at from our budget. And none of these numbers really reflect any major capital improvements to the facilities currently.
Except the 2027?
2027, we do have $1 million reserved as a placeholder to see what we're going to do. The year prior to that, in 2026, we have $100,000 set aside for master planning of the facility. And then Sirius Golf Advisors is the consulting business that we contracted out. And we are supposed to have the final deliverable. It's roughly 200 pages right now to kind of give us some guidance at the end of this month. So I guess with that, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I just open up for some questions from you.
All right. You answered my first question, which was, does a discount per round exist for residents? And you're saying that that is something that you're looking at, but currently local residents can opt into a pass or pay rack rate for a round of golf. So I want to support you in moving forward with a discount on a round of golf for a local resident without being a pass holder, or whatever that looks like. I think that would be great. I was also wondering if currently we run any programs where it's like open invitation to beginner golfers. Do we start a season off by saying, hey, free range balls or anything like that? If we don't, then I would say I would love to see more of those kind of programs available to our community. I want to interject here that yesterday we enjoyed the Mayor's Cup golf tournament out at the golf course. And number one, the course looks great, played great, gave people some trouble, which was nice actually. And the most resounding thing that I heard from yesterday was how much fun people had. So their overall experience yesterday, regardless of how they shot, was stellar.
Awesome.
So congratulations and thank you to you guys because you put on a wonderful tournament yesterday. And that goes from everything from the format to the course itself. So thank you so much. And we raised a bunch of money for mental health services in our valley.
Yeah.
The next thing that I would ask about is the budget numbers that you just shared and what's in our packet don't lead me to think that there's really a structural deficit here. You have ending fund balances of $1 million plus, $2 million in some years. Yeah, you have some capital needs coming up. You're handling some of those in the clubhouse, but you're gonna have more. Do you have more detail about the more? You mentioned in here, you had a picture of the tennis courts. We know the clubhouse. It seems like we do some sort of coursework every year. You know, we try to get done a little bit every year and stuff. But do you have numbers associated with these needed capital improvements?
And I'll jump in here. And no, the answer to that question is no. And that's part of the the master planning efforts that Jim's undertaking next year for the facilities. And this ties into some of our conversations earlier about looking at the tennis facilities specifically and looking at the option of an indoor sort of facility that's going to be a very high-ticket item. Some of these things, the picture that's illustrated here is root damage on the tennis courts by the cottonwoods on the west edge of the.
Hey, don't I know it?
Yeah. So obviously, those smaller efforts can be absorbed in the budget, but when it comes time to look at an indoor tennis facility, that's going to be a much higher ticket item. With the clubhouse itself, yes, it's a very much an aging facility with its own infrastructure needs, but also looking at areas for expansion there. The restroom facilities don't adequately address all the use that between the restaurant and the pro shop see there and things like that. We have an opportunity to remodel the downstairs and make that much more functional than it has been ever. Things like that are going to be much more expensive.
Which would be great. It's a shame that we're talking about a facility that's 22 years old, and I get it, but still, in late 90s, as you were saying, maybe if a little bit more forward planning for these facilities, and I include the ARC in that as well. We built these for the day that they were built and didn't have much of a future forecast, I think, there, but times have changed. I will just add in my general comments here and then open it up to other council members for their take. I am still in the amenity camp. I am not looking for a profit center. What's most important to me is accessibility and affordability for locals. I do not support privatization of the golf course because I've seen that other places. I know how that goes, and it reduces accessibility and affordability in almost every case that I know. And I think that the conversation that we're having around the golf course today is a great improvement over the conversations we've had about the golf course even in the last 2 or 3 years. So I am really happy with the direction that we're going. It seems to me that your capital needs can be and will be met in the future. A variety of funds can be used there, and I include general fund in that to a degree. I think that parks and open space and the allocated dollars that we have for those facilities are definitely available for this going forward. But I think right now you're doing a good job. You put up that screen about the passes. That made my heart skip for a second because I know we've had a lot of community conversation around that over the last few years. So again, you guys have been doing a great job over the last few years, and I just want to see that moving forward. I think we're in the right direction, so I would hate for us to take a left turn too greatly. And then I'd like to thank all the board members that are here. Thank you for showing up today. Thanks for your work on a weekly and monthly basis out there. Other council members for comments? I'll start with Sam.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to echo Tori's comments of definitely the community aspect of the golf course and how great a job you guys do with that. The feedback I hear is the needed capital improvements, and I just wonder, like Tori said, if there's opportunity for money to come from elsewhere, as you do have an enterprise fund, but this is a public entity, and I think this is money well spent to help fix some of these things like the clubhouse and the tennis facilities, because these are tangible wins that the community notices. So as you look ahead, parks and open space, and for the golf course, I'd say I'd most likely be supportive as long as we have the money for it to help in this regard. And then the other thing I would just add is when it comes to the pricing of things, I know you go through an extensive process, but I've also heard the Platinum Pass be called the Rich Guy Pass, and I do always wonder if that pass can actually be more expensive so all the other passes can be less expensive, because I truthfully think the Aspen model a lot of the time is a subsidization effort from usually the highest end to help with the lowest end of things, and I think that would be great for this community potentially if it does work in the mindsets of the board, who I know does a ton of effort on these sort of things. So thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I'm going to go to Bill.
Thanks. First of all, good job on your event yesterday. It's a great cause that you raised money for. Second of all, I'm not a golfer, so some of the things that I'm saying may come from a place of naivete.
We can always change that.
One day, when I have more time in my life, perhaps. But yeah, I might be naive and missing some nuance on certain things, and I'm open to learning more. But I am interested in hearing more about the leasing model, at least to understand what the alternative is. And if we put an RFP out there that shared our values about this being a community asset, I'd be intrigued to hear what comes back from some partners. I'm not saying that's the direction I'm giving you by any means, but I think it would be valuable for us to understand all our alternatives, even if they're ultimately not selected. So I think I would like to see an RFP go out on that and understand what gets brought back.
And Bill, if I may, just to I guess, address that one question, not to answer it, but to provide some information. The pro shop used to be leased out, as you're suggesting, and so there's actually, the reason I bring this up right now is that we have a lot of history of what that looks like and what that experience was like at that time, and I'm sure our board members can speak at length about what that was like. But we did see a lot of challenges with that model, and ultimately that's why, what year was it?
Yeah,
2000?
the lease ended in 2010, so since 2010, the city has managed it. The main reasons I think that the model didn't work is because of the community's desire to keep things accessible, and the amenity aspect of it didn't coincide with the business model of trying to make a profit. So they just were conflicting points of view, which is primarily the reason that it failed. But your point of view is understood, and we can certainly explore that more.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying, but, you know, SKICO is sort of like a great counterpoint. It's like, that's a great community asset for all of us, the mountains that we get to recreate on, and they're a for-profit business. You know, we're lucky with their stewardship, and maybe we could find some hybrid of that, but I'd just like to know what the alternative is. What would they propose? What of the capital improvements would they be willing to undertake or suggest? I'd just be interested in learning more. And then secondly, it has long made me uncomfortable that we subsidize anyone who wants to purchase one of these passes who lives in the valley. And it's not just for City of Aspen residents. City of Aspen is subsidizing these passes, whether it's through capital improvements, whether you just isolate the capital improvements or some portion of operating expenses, and that makes me uncomfortable. So I think we should all be contemplating that and talking about that. It's a pretty significant subsidy that we're offering to those who are not the citizens directly of our community. So at the very least, we need to acknowledge that, and perhaps we should discuss it and contemplate changing that. That's all I have to share on this. Thanks.
Well, and just on that note, just so you know, we do our pass sale. We do go through a primary resident verification. We sell roughly 1,000 passes a year. So we physically ask those people to submit a picture of their driver's license, validating that they are one of the 7 zip codes between Aspen and Basalt. Obviously, if council has different direction on, narrowing that down to just between here and Somas Village, just Aspen proper, just another thing that we're asking for input for to kind of give direction on what you foresee the future to be.
Yeah, that's exactly my point, right? We do it beyond the city limits of Aspen right now, and both through property taxes and other financing means we are subsidizing those players. So do we want to be doing that is the question.
Sure.
Thanks.
John, and then Ward.
Yeah, I just wanted to add my support behind keeping it a community amenity rather than a profit center. And I wanted to congratulate staff on continuing to be designated a certified Audubon sanctuary. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Just one question about the restaurant operations. I noticed golf, tennis, and Nordic have outgrown their facilities, and I understand that, but I'm not sure I understand Are we talking about expanding the restaurant?
It's a possibility. Within the business plan, they're definitely giving us different options. From my experience at the clubhouse, yeah, I would say that we're getting to the point now to where we are exceeding it. Right now, the parking lot, which kind of coincides with that. The parking lot doesn't really have enough spaces for restaurant, golf, tennis, all of that. So it would definitely would include some of the restaurant as well.
Okay. Thanks.
And Ward?
Yeah, to start off, thank you for a great golf course. I no longer golf, so I haven't had a bad shot in 20 years, I think. But I definitely support priority for city residents and then valley residents, and I do not support privatizing. I think that we should be delivering this as an amenity and pursuing profits on a city-owned property. I want to see enough profits for this to be sustainable for an enterprise fund, but I don't want to make the pursuit of profits the primary concern of the golf course. I also support the using staff between Nordic and golf course summer-winter usage. I think that makes a lot of sense. I do get out on the golf course a lot in the winter, but not in the summer. It is a concern to me that a 22-year-old building is viewed at the end of its useful lifetime, and that really does concern me. And I think that it's we've got to look at that. When we talk about capital funds and replacing capital in the possibility of bonding with the city parks, I think that bonding makes the most sense if we're going to do a major capital improvement there. I'm just a little bit concerned with combining it with parks since the golf course is an enterprise fund. So those are concerns. I would like to explore that more. Yeah, what is the Red Mountain Grill's lease? When is it up? And
Their lease was actually just renewed this last year, and it was renegotiated, so there is additional revenue from that lease moving forward.
okay, and Ute Mountaineer, how long is their lease good for?
Ute Mountaineer's lease has 1 year remaining, and they have the option on their upcoming lease.
I love Ute Mountaineer. I just wonder how it's been for the golf course as well.
I hear ya.
Okay. Okay, so here it is. This was purchased in 1972 as open space. There's been a lot of discussion in this community about a 3-lane shifted, which as an entrance to Aspen, which would be requiring space along the golf course corridor. And so I want your business plan to reflect that as a possibility, and your advisory board to be well aware of what land use may be required for different entrances to Aspen. As we go forward, hopefully getting something done here. Frustrated that we didn't put it on the ballot for this November, but I'm trying not to be sour grapes about that. But that, I think, covers my concerns, that I really want it to be centric to the valley, to the residents. I want to have the cross-use between summer, winter, Nordic, and golf to be maintained. The bonding issue about capital improvements and the entrance to Aspen.
Understood. Thank you for your direction.
That entrance to Aspen piece is a little interesting. It's not actually the 3-lane shifted bridge that was going to eat up space into the golf course, if that's the direction. It was a bus slip lane that was on the side of that alignment. But Ward's point to you is that there has been talk that there might be movement of that par 3 hole and maybe the par 5 that's along the roadway there.
I think it's the tee boxes on hole number 15, near the pond at the entrance there, yeah. And
Anyway,
yeah.
you know what's in that issue. Okay. Any last thoughts that anybody did not share? Is there any other direction or questions that you have directly for us for clarity?
Oh, I just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize Dominic Lanise, who is our golf course superintendent, who
For
has.
how many years?
Yeah, exactly. Too many. If I'm correct, it's over 40 now, or thereabouts, so.
I know moving forward, we'll obviously finalize the business plan and present some ideas in the, hopefully, in next year.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you all for being here. Our last issue for this evening's agenda is an opportunity for any council board reports that council members want to bring forward. And then we have an APCHA discussion led by our APCHA appointees.
I had a core development committee meeting earlier today. As you all know, we're working on aligning the building codes across Pitkin, Eagle, and Garfield counties. The new city market in Basalt, which is actually in Eagle County, will go through the building IQ standards, which I think is pretty cool. We went through the whole guest list for the buttermilk mash to target possible donors and start scheduling meetings with individual business owners. And we're creating a new list of attendees for December's event. And that's it for board reports.
Thank you. With that,
A few months ago, we had, and I really support this, that we have a quarterly meeting with City Council about direction and briefing on where APCHA is going, what issues are before APCHA. And so that we have good direction from the City Council and buy-in. And I had 4 issues that I wanted to discuss this evening. The first one is an update on the RFP status for a new hearing officer that has been issued. There have been 3 applicants so far. There's been a meeting, and there is, that's moving forward. We don't know if we're going to be hiring a new hearing officer. We have an officer that is a standby that we've never used in Denver, but that is something we've heard from this city council and from other members on the APCHA board that we want to pursue exploring our options. So that is, that's the update on that. One thing that, I don't know which one to go with next. I belatedly emailed the strategic plan to everybody on city council, and this is something that is going to be decided by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, so it's not immediately needed. And it's a 5-year strategic plan that we need to update, and if you review the goals, mission, vision, and the goals, I think are every bit as valuable now as they were 5 years ago. But what I would like this council to do is to take the time to review all of this, to think seriously about it, and I think the goals are really good, and think of maybe there are other strategies that may be used to pursue in the next 5 years. We've made some progress on a lot of these in the last, since 2021, I think, is when the first 5-year strategic plan was formulated. So if all of us could go through the mission, vision, the values, I don't think the values have changed. At least our board felt, the APCHA board felt that the values today are the same that they were 5 years ago. And I'm going to ask for a collaborative on this if John wants to go into mission, vision, goals, or any of that.
I mean, I'd be happy to read them out loud. They're not that lengthy. Our mission: APCHA supports affordable workforce housing for a sustainable community and a prosperous economy. We accomplish our mission through equitable policies, accountable management, and innovative development to meet the changing needs of APCHA residents and the community. We effectively communicate and partner with the community to accomplish this mission. The vision, APCHA aspires to cultivate the country's most vibrant mountain community, diverse, connected, healthy, and thriving. Undervalues public trust, do what is ethical and in the public's interest, protect the housing program's integrity and accountability, demonstrate equal opportunity, fairness, and consistency in all actions, quality service, provide respectful, friendly, timely, consistent, and proactive customer service, provide fair and compassionate service, increase program simplicity and clarity to improve the customer experience. Under transparency, communicate frequently and accurately to increase public awareness and understanding of the program, its rules, and its decisions. Accountability, promote inventory and occupancy integrity, adopt organizational best practices, create a culture of continuous improvement and accountability, demonstrate excellent financial stewardship and governance. Under efficiency and effectiveness, implement state-of-the-art systems, processes, and policies that will increase customer and staff efficiency, demonstrate value and verifiable results to public and decision makers through reliable data and reporting. I'd like to point out we've been doing this, working on this pretty hard with our communications department. I think it's going well. Under equity, provide equal opportunity of access to housing for qualified workers at various income levels, provide consistent and even-handed enforcement of the housing regulations. Innovation, foster creative solutions to solve problems and increase cooperation in the community, be open to new and more effective ways of doing business, have a long-term vision and strategy for success. I think staff's done a really good job on highlighting these values and tweaking them a little bit to account for the little bit of time that's gone on since the last strategic plan.
This is a 5-year plan that's being developed right now?
Just being updated, really.
It's to be approved end of this year, the first part of next year, I think. Is that correct, Matthew?
January and February.
Okay.
Is this the first iteration or is this an update?
That's the current plan.
So this one was adopted in the spring of 2020, and your IGA, your intergovernmental agreement, requires that you update it every 5 years. And so Matthew has been talking to the board about a process to update this, and the timing is January to finish it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a retreat probably within a couple of months to formulate, and I'd like to have the council weigh in on this before we have that retreat, so we have direction from a council as a whole.
That'd be great. Parts of this were shared with us. I received pages 9, 10, and 12. So I'd love to get the whole strategic plan sent.
I think you got everything that was part of the packet from September 2nd.
Yeah, that's what we have.
The page numbers might be off, but we can make sure that you make sure that you have everything.
Yeah, I'd love to just see the whole thing. You have a couple topics to jump on, or?
Yeah, one of them was an issue that was brought before me by the mayor, and I wanted to get some conversation on it, is that somebody in the community, nameless in the community, is requested what they could do if their property was deed restricted as RO, looking perhaps as an exchange for a housing credit. And the problem I see with that is a housing credit to sell doesn't house anybody, so that you can't put somebody in a housing credit. But one of our strategies for increasing workforce housing availability is non-construction, and we've been looking at buy-down. So it's possible, depending on what the details are on the inquiry that was presented to you, Tori, that we could conceivably put money in as a buy-down to buy that free market as a RO unit, but it's something that we should explore. But I don't think that there's anything, I don't know that we've done that before. I know that the city has tried to do buy downs. So I want to pursue that and continue to keep the parties anonymous at this point, do it from a high level.
Yeah, I didn't really have an opinion about it. I didn't really think through kind of how it would work, but I get the intention there, right? Is you would issue a housing certificate to somebody who deed restricts their home, and then they would sell that housing certificate, right?
Yeah, but
Like the credit program or whatever.
I think a certificate is not issued until there's an RO. So you have to have a unit to sell a certificate. You can't live in a certificate, but we can get an RO if we do if we explore the possibility of purchasing or doing a buy down. You know, we've talked about that at up and down the valley where you, and the downtown, or the down payment assistance in essence is taking public monies and seeding to buy a deed restricted unit. So I think it's worth exploring and finding a way, if there's a way to benefit the community by buying an RO unit without construction. Anything that we produce is going to be over $1 million per unit. So I'm certainly entertaining that.
Okay, great, thank you.
The final item I had that I wanted to discuss with the council is Habitat for Humanity. I attended, Gil Schwartz has been doing great things on this, and this is along the lines of what I talked about earlier about housing as a regional concern, transportation is, as well as greenhouse gas. And Habitat for Humanity has an interesting proposition in that they want to produce modular units and they want to produce a factory in Rifle, and they're looking for funding for that. And I think the ask that I would have of this council at this time is to support a work session for Habitat for Humanity to present their what their strategies are and what their ask is. My concern, I think that their focus is really on getting ownership of properties for workers. And if there's a way that we can somehow support these modular boxes, but there are also some concerns that Habitat for Humanity may be bidding on the lumberyard. So we have to be cautious about going forward if we have a work session with somebody that might possibly be a bidder on a property that we'll be developing.
Has Habitat for Humanity requested a work session with us?
They have, and I let Gail know that we needed a majority of council to support it, and that the earliest work session we have available is in November because of budget meetings. Thank you.
I'll support it.
The thing that's really interesting to me is I don't know how we could fund it. I don't think we can do it out of the 150 fund, but they're looking for money to build this facility in Rifle. And when they presented to BOCC, they were saying they can deliver workforce housing, and they were saying $135 a foot. And, you know, I find that extremely difficult to believe, but I would certainly want to explore it. And they did a project. They purchased, I think, a 3-year-old rental property, and are condominiumizing those and turning them into something like 80 for-sale units for workforce housing. I think they have some different ideas and slants on how we can approach this issue or this community need. So I don't know where we go with the fact that they might be bidding on the lumberyard and being able to present to the city council what their ideas are.
Gail, Mr. Mayor and Council, Gail advised me that they were not going to be bidding.
Well, if they've got a request out to us that they'd like to come before council to ask for funding or something like that, then we can find out if folks support it and get it scheduled for them.
Well, I definitely support hearing what they have. They have some innovative ideas.
Yeah, if they have requested wanting to come to us, yes, my answer is of course, I'll support them coming to us. I'll tell you right now, I can see us being a customer, but maybe not an investor. And maybe by us wanting to be a customer, that's kind of maybe some of the financial support that they need going forward. But I'm always open to hearing, yes, if they're requesting to come before us, then yes, I'll support them coming before us. I heard from Ward and John, Sam?
Sure.
Bill?
You got 4 already.
I'll take that as a yes.
Take it as what you will. It's not what I said.
I'm gonna take it as a yes then. Unless you wanna say no. It's up to you. Cool. So yeah, let's schedule it. Would love to, talk to them. Again, like I said, I don't know that that's, where we would invest, but, we definitely want to support them getting their project going.
Well, those are the 4 items I had, but I want to know if there are items that come from this council that we should address, or John and I should be bringing to the APCHA board.
Sounds good. Bill and then Sam?
Thanks. On the notion of the issuance of credits for someone who has free market housing that's willing to do it, I think it's a great idea, and I sort of counter the notion that you can't live in a credit, because you could live in a credit tomorrow. If that person moves out of that unit tomorrow, after deed restricting it, it becomes permanent workforce housing. So I have no issue with that. I think it's a good idea. I would pursue it. It's essentially the exact same thing as a buy down, except we're not financing it out of our current coffers. We're theoretically sacrificing the revenue from a fee in lieu payment that might come from a different development. Instead, we're generating more credit availability on the market, which past councils have supported as being the most desirous mechanism of offsetting affordable housing generation. So I'm super supportive of that. I think it's a good idea. I think it's basically no cost to the community, and I don't think we'll get a ton of demand for it, but if we get one out of it, it's worth it. So, secondly, I wanted to inquire about the financial incentivization for right sizing, where we stand on that.
Well, the board is working on that. We've had a voluntary program. It hasn't generated a lot of interest. What, John, one?
One is what I recall.
Yeah.
But that's not with a financial incentive, right?
No.
No, okay.
But that is, I think, John, that's been brought before the board, isn't it? That we've been,
Yes, I believe so.
yeah, I'd be interested in trying to put a number on that and one of the goals is utilization. So that would be a strategy, Bill, that I think we should pursue.
Well, my question there is there a financial incentive? Let's just take a easy case scenario. Somebody is living in a 2-bedroom and doesn't need or care for a 2-bedroom anymore and says, I would like to move to a 1-bedroom. They would sell their 2-bedroom unit and purchase the 1-bedroom unit. Most often, I would think that there is some kind of money differential there.
Well, the way I would see it, first of all, is there's a challenge, if you want to stay in the program, that you're going to have to find a smaller unit to purchase. So that's a challenge for this, but the incentivizing it would be if you move out of the program perhaps, Or if you want to downsize it, there would be a financial incentive. Just picking a number out of the air, let's say you get $100,000 if you're going to free up a bedroom. It's just not a number that is, I mean, it's just out of the air. But for illustrative purposes, somebody wants to go from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom, that they would be able to realize some kind of financial gain, and in return, the city and the community would be gaining 1 or 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, some of that financial incentive would come from the actual transaction.
I would say there's actually a series of disincentives to downsizing today without a new program like we're talking about. You know, between higher interest rates that exist in the climate that, you know, people may have financed their unit at very favorable interest rates, but because of the way that the math works on unit pricing, sometimes that 1-bedroom could cost more than the 2-bedroom that they're in.
Right.
Again, there's a series of disincentives, and there's, I'm sure, a bunch of things that I'm not thinking of.
It's a wicked problem.
Yeah, well, it's very easily solvable, I think, and I think this is the most effective, well, not solvable by me, but I think if we offer clear direction to staff to create a pilot program with financial incentives for right sizing and do it as soon as possible, I think it's one of the most effective things we can do for this community in terms of affordable housing, workforce housing, and it's development neutral. So I've been asking for this for quite some time. It doesn't seem like we've
Bill,
made
you're not the
significant
only one
progress
that's
on
been interested in this, and it's preceded your interest on the city council. It's very valid, and if you have a specific plan that you want to bring forward, we're all ears. I think the APCHA board want to utilize. We're trying to find a way, and it's not a new idea, but it still doesn't have a policy, but come up with an idea. Let's bring it forward.
Well, I'm not, to be clear, I'm not claiming ownership of this idea. I'm just reinforcing how effective it could be for our community. And I think we should get it in place and try it and learn from it. I don't know the reasons why we don't have something in front of us yet. I genuinely don't. Ward, you expressed to me that you were interested in this and championing it. I know several other people on the APCHA board that are interested in it. Why don't we have something yet? That's a question.
Hang on one
Here's a
second.
government move slowly.
No. Diane?
So the APCHA board has not directed staff to have that specific discussion, specifically around incentivizing right sizing. As a reminder, APCHA doesn't have a budget independent of the city and county. One of the things that your policy analyst is working on right now is that you also have asked for as a buy-down scenarios. And we went through an initial round with the APCHA attorney, and we ran into some equal protection clause issues on that front. I won't go into detail, but just we ran into some legal challenges on that as far as who we can offer things to. So we're in the process right now, Liz is in the process right now of developing some scenarios that we can put back in front of them. Matthew is highly supportive of the APCHA attorney working on this and us coming back to you, specifically the city council, with some discussion of that, and that'll likely be in a upcoming, hopefully this fall, fall to early winter, depending on how the schedule works, executive session. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Bill, thanks for bringing that back up again. We'll keep reminding us, and let's try to get something on it.
Well, it sounds like it needs a kickstart of idea. And I mean, like, for example, I can start this conversation by saying, are there 1-bedroom units that are going to a lottery currently? Are there any 1-bedroom units that are for sale or coming for sale? Are there any listed currently? Does APCHA have any?
I was on the website today. I saw a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit that's employer-owned. That's all that was on there.
That's all that's on there. Okay, so the first place that this starts is having a unit that we can even utilize for this, right? So,
Well, without the program, you don't incite the demand.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, so we need to start working on to give it legs, it needs a start. We need to give to Ward, who is our APCHA board representative, whatever tool he needs to go to the APCHA board to get the APCHA board to start formulating or discussing this program, correct?
Yes, and it's probably sufficient to have the discussion you've had for two reasons. One is you have a housing policy analyst, and actually in the APCHA budget, they are coming forth with a proposal to add their own policy analyst because Liz is spending about 60% of her time on APCHA issues. And so this new position has been presented as an option, and the APCHA board is supportive of it. So we've got on staff the horsepower to come back, to put together what those ideas can be.
Okay.
So I don't actually think you have to generate the ideas. I think we understand what you want. And what we may come back to and say, hey, a buy-down program is easier. You know, Bill cited, there are hurdles. There are a lot of hurdles to right-sizing. I was camping last week with someone who lives in Highlands, wants to right-size HOA fees. Right? You've got to look at all these things have to match up. APCHA has already put in place what is a financial incentive, specifically that they do not look at retirement assets if you're right-sizing. That's a big change. So if you're a retiree, your incomes come down, and they're not looking at your retirement assets, boy, you might get into a better category. But all those things need to line up for two folks. And I think it may end up, my guess is it may end up, if we can figure out a buy-down program, a buy-down or buy-out program specifically would be easier than financially incentivizing a right-sizing program. That being said, your policy analyst who does follow city council direction can start to look at that, or is already starting to look at the buy-out program, and we can add rental. Is there an incentive for rentals to that? Thank you.
I asked for input for what we should bring into the discussion for strategic plan, so I've included what Bill's idea is, and I feel support from the rest of the council that we would support right-sizing, whether it's a buy-down or right-sizing, somehow just to better utilize the stock that's out there.
Yeah, and I would add, sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would add it should be all of these things. These are all like development neutral, relatively, and I use the term relative to new development.
Right.
Low cost things that may tick a few different boxes simultaneously. The idea that Ward and I have talked about extensively is simple, and I'm sure it needs tweaking, but if someone wishes to downsize their unit or move out of the program entirely, we can create a pilot program with a certain amount of dollars earmarked towards that pilot program and create some metric. Ward used the number 100,000 per bedroom, which I think is a reasonable starting place for discussion, to say, okay, if you are freeing up 2 bedrooms for our community, you can get $200,000 if you leave the program entirely. Or if you're going from a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom, you get $200,000. That may counter a lot of the disincentives that exist in the program today from downsizing. This doesn't need to be a program that you have to go find the match directly. I think that overcomplicates things tremendously. So I don't think that should be a part of it, where party A has to go find the downsizing or the right-sizing party and make that match themselves. I think this is something that APCHA and the city can help facilitate in a much lower friction way. So I don't think there's much more nuance to the program than that. It's something that shouldn't exist in perpetuity, but it could help solve some near-term issues and free up some housing.
Yeah, if I might add to it, I would say 2 potential solutions would be intra-APCHA lotteries for right-sizing purposes. So when a unit becomes available, it's only available to those that are right-sizing initially. You might be able to do that a certain number of times before you put it back to the regular public, but that is something that I've experienced that works really well. And another one, when you talk about the numbers, I think this is what actuaries and actuarial science is for, to find that actual number of what a bedroom is worth to this community. versus what it means to build. So I think those two things would be massive to help solving this problem.
So what I hear is a right sizing through various different methodology and the support from the city council to direct staff to come up with something to present.
With money behind it. That's the kicker here. It's something that's not been done before that really changes the dynamic.
Well, the buy downs or the financial incentives, because one of
Yes.
our goals is development neutral.
Yes, I think we're all serious about seeing if a right-sizing program can actually work. So what does that take to get it? Obviously, it's not what we're doing now, so we need to step it up. It's a starting point, $100,000 a bedroom is a great stepping off point, but as Sam is saying, will that make a difference? We don't know. Diane, do you need any other information about what we're trying to get to there?
Nope. Two pieces of information for you. One is you do have all the pages of the strategic plan. That numbering came from the APCHA packet. That's why it's odd numbers. And secondly, I would encourage you, feel free to talk to staff about what you think numbers might be, but actually signaling to the community what you think the value is may actually, could hurt. Don't signal ahead of time what you're going to do for money, is a piece of advice. Thanks.
Thank you. Diane, no, I don't have the whole packet in the attachment that was sent to me. I have got 2 pages. No, 3. I've got 9, 10, and
That's all
12.
there is.
Right.
Here you are.
That's
Got one.
10, 11, 13, 12, and 13.
That's it.
Is there no pages 1 through
Shrunk
8?
down on what we got
No.
into.
So it's total of 5 pages, and the way it was put into the APCHA board packet, it had two of the pages showed up on the same page.
I think in the APCHA
I'll send you a new
package, it was
version.
pages
Yeah.
9 through 13.
Okay, so, okay. You're saying this is all there is? Okay.
I have a quick question to end.
I can't wait to see the other pages.
Here, take this.
It's the same, Ward, it's the same. Okay. Sam, what did you have?
Just wanted to ask if there was any solicitation or progress on replacing Allison Bektesh on the APCHA board?
Good point, good point. I think that it's been advertised.
Yep.
And if any of you know somebody that would like to serve on the APCHA board, Allison has resigned from the board, so there's going to be an opening.
But it's advertised, so you can apply,
Yes.
you can apply right now
Yes.
somewhere, okay.
And Ward, could you, if you know, could you talk about what the requirements for serving in that position are?
Matthew, do you want to come up? You have to be a citizen, you have to,
I think the requirements are simply approval by you guys and the Board of County Commissioners. You guys make a decision based on your skill and expertise and what you want to see from the community member, and it's very, it's exactly the same procedure as you appoint all community members to all boards.
Live in Pitkin County, I assume, or not even?
you see, I don't know if,
Yeah, King County resident, I think
That's basically it.
That's basically
18
it.
and older, Pitkin County,
Yeah.
approved by both boards.
yeah, and it used to be that a joint BOCC city council would appoint, but they can be appointed by us and then by
We've done that, yeah,
BOCC.
yeah. Sweet. All right, that's all I wanted to know.
Thank you. Do you have any other items?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
For me, 2 items. One, I continually get stressed about the change in language here, and it is now called affordable workforce housing. We have a category called RO, which is resident occupied. That is not dependent on your work history or current work. We also, this affordable housing and the program was not just about workforce. I think that, you know, these days we all have kind of a focus on that, but for me, I find that we continually narrow the definition of what this affordable housing program is about. And I find it to be limiting about who it serves and how it serves our community. So in this document that I have a few pages of, that are all the pages that exist, I guess, it starts talking about, it's like the language is changing, and it's changing right in front of our eyes. Affordable workforce housing, and it talks about a sustainable community and a prosperous economy, but, you know, I just continue to have concern. The conversation around what this housing means to our community is more and more morphing into those that are serving our community, and you know, that's a concern to me. The next items, we've had conversations around two things: categories, rents, and income caps. What work is going on at the APCHA board around our categories and the rents that are being charged and such? You know, as we look at bringing on the lumberyard, the pro forma and the scenarios that we're putting out there, I guess, are based on our current categories and such. And I think we all were looking at these saying that there's room for improvement. And I think that there's room for improvement for both the equitability for our community, but also what our housing program and its sustainability needs some adjustment in what's going on with the categories. And is there any conversation at the board level on that?
Yeah, we did have a presentation, and we had a full board discussion about the categories and the discrepancy in rents and for sale, and the board was more supportive of directing APCHA staff to look at the for sale categories than the for rent categories.
There's also a contract on your September 24th agenda. Liz is bringing forth a contract with the successful bidder for the rental rate study, which includes looking at categories as well as an evaluation of pretty much everything you're talking about.
And then does that include income caps and the conversation around income caps for different categories? Okay. Other items for our APCHA representatives?
Tori, I will say that we've had discussions about every one of the programs, workforce or affordable housing programs, whatever term you want to use, has a work requirement. And we have brought before the APCHA board the 1,400 versus 1,500 hours to be eligible to purchase on any of these programs up and down the valley. And I think one entity has 1,400, some have 1,500, but there's always a full-time work requirement to be eligible. And I've always said that we get community from the family of the people that are employees. So to say, there's never going to be a shortage of people that want to have tax subsidized housing, but I think we do need to have something attached to that great subsidy for the housing, and I think that is a service to the community and the economy.
I don't disagree with being a working member of our community. I don't think that holds true in every case. I think there are people that contribute to our community greatly that don't actually, work for SKICO or the city. And I also know that there are a lot of people that do a lot of hard work here that don't get paid a lot and don't have the opportunity to work a lot. I think that, again, that some of the conditions that we put on our housing are difficult for many. I know that we have had several members of our community move out of APCHA housing in the last couple of years because they weren't able to fulfill the requirements or at least the documentation of requirements. And these are people that I've known for 30 years that have been part of this community and still are. So for me, I just, once again, there was a big push for this compliance by a certain group in our community that is already against housing and any subsidized form. So, I just am going to say it as a cautionary message. I think that, we need to be very careful about what we're doing, and it has to do with what we're going to get. So going forward, I just think that everybody needs to be aware of that. And I know that there's differing opinions on that. I'm sharing mine.
Tori, along those lines, I'm well aware of the push for compliance. And it's really frustrating for me to be on the APCHA board and push for compliance. And then when people are found to be out of compliance, then the APCHA board is turned into the villain in an exercise to reclaim that unit that people are not in compliance. And all of a sudden, we're characterized as the workforce eviction society or something. So you ask for something, you get it, and then you're criticized for doing it. So it's a frustration.
Yeah, and I don't hold anybody who works at APCHA, to blame or responsible for anything like that. I think that the regulations that we have on the books are need amendment. I've said it before. I think that the 1,500-hour requirement, the way that plays out is, 50 weeks of 30 hours a week, and then when I bring that up, people say to me, they're like, nah, that's not true because everybody works 2 jobs anyway. I just don't think that's kind of a healthy respect to give to people and the lives that they're trying to live. And they, I know a lot of people that contribute an awful lot to this community. And it's, some of the requirements are just a little maybe beyond reality in a lot of cases. Anyway, again, I'm just sharing my opinion. I think that calling it workforce housing instead of community housing or affordable housing is a disservice. And I think it marginalizes some of the people that are trying to utilize that housing and contribute to our community. I've long said that I thought that volunteerism in our community should count towards some hours. So that's something that maybe you want to bring back to the board is there hours credit for volunteerism? Again, I just wanted to bring that up because I see this language that's in this strategic plan, and it's a concern to me. Not to everybody, but to me. John?
Yeah, I just want to make some comments about APCHA. I think APCHA, being on the board, we're tasked with the difficult job trying to be lenient as possible, while also we're tasked with being forceful with evictions. And it's a very fine line that we have to weave our way through. Again, serving on APCHA for the last year and a half or so, I've seen a lot of new ideas come forward and a lot of work being done to change the way things have been and improve APCHA. And I believe that the leadership is there and we are making great progress.
And I think the IGA that removed the burden of hearing from the APCHA board to a hearing officer was a really good move.
I do wish right sizing was more successful, but I do feel in my heart that we will find a way to make it more successful somehow. Maybe with Bill's suggestion of.
Any other items for our representatives?
I would just say I'd second your notion on some hours of volunteering counting towards your work requirement.
Thanks.
Noted.
Yes.
I'm just looking if you had anything else, but you're our alternate, so all good? thank you for being here. Liz, thank you for the work that
Thanks,
you've
all.
brought to the city. We appreciate what you do. That is our last agenda item for tonight. We will be back tomorrow. We have a regularly scheduled meeting at 5 p.m. So any members of the public that wish to make comment or address council, please join us here at City Hall at 5 p.m. As always, thank you to Grassroots.